USDT on Tron being used for daily transactions was about 40%, meaning that it was actually more liquid. USDT was more liquid at the time and still now than the US dollar in the country of Nigeria. And I was like, holy crap, that's crazy. And I realized then and there that everything that I'd worked on building in the Web3 space was for the top 1%. Like anyone who participates in buying an NFT or speculating on meme coins or even using mostly infra and or DeFi are people who are based in the top 1% of the world's economy, no matter where they're at. And I realized that's not why I'm here in this space. That's not why I've been here for the last, 8-9 years at the time. And I was like, okay, I want to build something that can impact more towards the 99% than the 1%.
None of the information in this podcast constitutes investment advice or an offer, recommendation, or solicitation by WAGMI Ventures or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities. Hey folks, it's Benga here with another WAGMI Ventures podcast episode. Today we're going to be exploring the world of on-chain community development with Eric Choi. He's the CEO founder of The Guild. The Guild is a decentralized Web3 protocol that combines gig economy elements with social networking, enabling users to monetize their networks and build verifiable or verified on-chain reputations. For anyone who is new, this is the WAGMI Ventures podcast, where we do snapshots with interesting builders and founders across crypto and AI. Check out wagmiventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. For now, let's welcome Eric to the show. Hey, dude, what's up? How are you doing?
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thanks for the great introduction. My name is Eric Choi. I've been in the Web3 space for about the last 9.5, 10 years, and I am the founder of The Guild.
Awesome, man. Thank you for that. Yeah, you have a pretty extensive background in crypto, over 8 years, and I might be missing another year or two there, but at least I know 8 years. Share with us how you got in early and what the journey has looked like.
Phew, that's a loaded question. I mean, it's definitely been a roller coaster ride. I got in very early, like most people, investing into the space. I guess my first, encounter with Bitcoin was helping a friend pay for his college tuition. He was much smarter than I was, one of the people that was on the Cypherpunk mailing list, and he was mining Bitcoin at the time. Bitcoin was around $3, like 2011. And I was going to loan him money. Instead, he sold me his Bitcoin at like, I think 5 to 10% below market price at the time. And the second question usually is, did you keep it? No, I sold pretty early. And so I didn't actually really get into the mix until after my Korean military service, like 2013-ish. I ended up buying Bitcoin right before I went into the military. And then I totally forgot about it until I got out. Because in the Korean military, you don't have access to cell phones. It's mandatory service. You get minimal access to internet. And so I'd totally forgotten about it. And then in 2015, that's when I really read the Bitcoin white paper and started down the path. 2015 to 2017, I was just volunteering. There wasn't much information on the internet. And since I'm based in Seoul, South Korea, there was definitely not enough information anywhere. And so when I really jumped in full time was 2017. I'd started trading more deep into it 2016, 2017 when Ethereum first came out. And yeah, I've had my full ups and downs. I've gone from 0 to 7 figures and then back down to 0 again and then back up to like 7 figures and lost it all again. And in sometimes through bad investments, sometimes through being scammed. And so when I jumped in full time in 2017, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was already volunteering as a community manager for 3 or 4 major blockchains at the time. And yeah, when I started, I didn't really have a business model. I started with 2 other co-founders. I built that team to 16 people while being the COO of a separate project. That separate project founders ended up rugging me and the investors that I brought on. I brought on like 95% of the investment for that project, which hurt a lot. But I ended up paying all the legal fees, getting the investors mostly a refund, and over a lawsuit over like 2 years. While doing that, I ended up restarting a company called Diant, which stands for Digital Giant shortened, DIIANT, which was a Web3 venture and product studio. And then I lost a crap ton of money in Celsius. I thought I was being smart. I was like, nope, I'm not gonna get the 20% interest off of Terra Luna or put my money in FTX. And I was like, I'm gonna put it into a savings account like thing in Celsius. And well, that I had no idea that money from Celsius was gonna be reallocated to Terra, and that's where they were able to pay off the 12% interest. And it's still in a lawsuit. They just came back from Chapter 11. Aside from that, Diant has been my baby. Diant is now a 10-person team based out of Seoul. We've worked with previous enterprises, institutions, governments, the Department of Health for Mongolia, other bigger institutions that are based in South Korea. We've worked with the likes of Jameson, all the way to different Web3 startups or protocols or giant infra projects that were trying to enter the Asian market. And we help them with go-to-market strategy, building out some products related stuff. And about a year ago, I was inspired to kind of work on the guild.
Wow, this is pretty fascinating. I think, wow,
Yeah,
you're
sorry, that was
definitely had quite a roller coaster of a journey from your first Bitcoin to founding interesting projects to being rug pulled to making it all back and sort of like back in the game. And you talk about Diane being your baby. I know you have two, the guild as well. And let's actually dive into both. Like, talk to us about what is Diant. I know the focus here is the guild, but just share a little bit on Diant and what you've done. And then we can talk about the guild and your inspiration to found this project and what you're looking to accomplish with it.
So I'll give you the short run for Diant. My focus isn't really on Diant at this current point in time because Diant kind of runs itself through the actual team. I brought on all the team members when they didn't know anything about Web3. We did workshops and taught them one by one over the years, whether it's the UI UX designers, the project managers, or the developers, or business developers. And when it comes to Diant, the original inspiration was quite simple as to why I ended up starting a venture/product studio / accelerator. I went to Deconomy back in 2017 and then again in 2018. And South Korea didn't have the reputation that it had now. Growing up, when I was in the States, people were like, are you Chinese or Japanese? And then I'm like, no, I'm Korean. And they're like, where is that? That's how little of a presence that country had of 15.5 million people. And thanks to the likes of like K-pop and Terra Luna and Samsung, it has gotten to where it is. But the thing is, everything that's great about Korea has been exported. It's never where people came here. Like, for example, we are pretty big in consumer electronics with the likes of Samsung, LG. Most display conferences or CES are held outside of the country. Even the Galaxy event for Samsung is held in a different country every year that's not South Korea. And same thing with K-pop. The biggest K-pop conventions or festivals or concerts are held outside of South Korea. And what that means is we're in the business of exporting, but no one comes here to actually really deep dive into the products that we're exporting. And what happened at Economy was I saw Vitalik on stage, I saw Novogratz, I saw Fake Toshi, and basically all the biggest names in the space that you could read about on the internet. And that's when I realized, holy crap, this is the one industry where people are looking at this country expecting there to be huge growth from here, which makes sense because at that point, we were doing like 30% of the world's spot trade volume from this tiny little country, which is insane. We're still doing about, I think, somewhere between 15 and 20%. And so what I came to the conclusion of is, look, I'm not smart enough to be the next Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, but we haven't had someone that's that globally outstanding come out of Korea in the emerging tech space. And so I thought, if I could just build the foundations, if I could just build the steps for these people to be able to grow and for the next Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Sam Altman to come out of South Korea, then I think it's worth a try. And at that point, there was probably less than 500 to 1,000 people that were like really deep within the space. And so I figured, okay, if I can just keep my step here, even if I'm ranked 999, obviously I'll probably improve, but even if I stayed there, I would still be and as long as the industry grows, I'd still be in the 0.1%. And that's kind of what led to the building of Diant. As far as the guild goes, what happened was I was talking to a friend / mentor who was one of the founders of South Korea's biggest and first like real Web3 community that kind of started out as in an apartment room with a YouTube channel and is now the biggest co-living / co-working space based in South Korea that has produced multiple billion-dollar projects and unicorns, whether it's the likes of like Osmosis, Chainapsis, when any of the OGs that are in the space, whether it's from the Ethereum Foundation or Cosmos or other ecosystems, that's kind of where that's one of their first stops to come visit. And you get people that are from all ages, from like high school all the way to lawyers that are in their like 40s and 50s that are co-living in this cohort space together. They're now managing about 5 or 6 buildings in Seoul. And that's also where Diant started. But I was talking to Xian, who is a part of Metacartel and VentureDAO at the time. And he had just come back from his trip from Africa to Nigeria and Kenya because he's an investor, avid investor in the space. He's also writing a book on DAOs. And I was like, I've done every other vertical from like infra to DeFi to NFTs. Like I really wanted to work on DAOs because I believed that the community aspect of Web3 was the most important. And he told me, the guy who was writing a book on DAOs and was a part of Metacartel and VentureDAO was saying, don't do DAOs. And I was like, well, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. And he explained to me about the adoption level and his experience in Nigeria and Kenya. So country of 200 million people, out of that, 40% are undocumented, 60% are unbanked. These are approximate numbers, by the way. And the crypto usage, like daily usage of USDT on Tron being used for daily transactions was about 40%, meaning that it was actually more liquid. USDT was more liquid at the time and still now than the US dollar in the country of Nigeria. And I was like, holy crap, that's crazy. And I realized then and there that everything that I'd worked on building in the Web3 space was for the top 1%. Like anyone who participates in buying an NFT or speculating on meme coins or even using mostly infra and or DeFi are people who are based in the top 1% of the world's economy, no matter where they're at. And I realized that's not why I'm here in this space. That's not why I've been here for the last 8-9 years at the time. And I was like, okay, I want to build something that can impact more towards the 99% than the 1%. And that's when I started doing a bunch of research. I looked at Web3 businesses, Web2 businesses. When I looked at Web2 businesses, I realized that you're kind of like reverse engineering and physics-bound products and trying to build them into a digital world, which doesn't have the same rules. And so like you're kind of walking backwards. And so I started exploring sci-fi novels, realized I wasn't that good at physics like Elon. And so I went back to my childhood. I started looking at anime and video games and started looking at the philosophical ideas and if there were any business models that overlapped. And was able to find a few that did overlap, which I can get into a little bit later.
Yeah, now, thank you for that context. I want to just get, before we start to do a deeper dive into the guild and what you're building, just want to get your quick thoughts on where you view the future of Web3 communities and on-chain community development. And then we can sort of just loop back into sort of the foundational concepts for the guild.
I guess I'll start by identifying some of the problems that I see within Web3 communities now. The aspect of a subculture existing in crypto has definitely been proven with the existence of like what people call CT, which is crypto Twitter. And not only that, advents like the meme coin space where it's like an IPO before the product happens, which is kind of insane. The fact that you're using this idea and this cultural movement and you're getting this massive hundreds of millions to billions of dollars in liquidity of people that are trading it with hundreds of thousands to possibly millions of holders. But those guys are activating on across platforms of fragmented across Discord, Telegram, Twitter. This actually is a problem that it's existed in the Web2 space as well. And they're also trying to then use these new age Web3 products like questing platforms like Zeely, Questin, Galaxy. And there are multiple problems that occur across those communities. First part would be like cherry pickers and the problems of like what's real community versus what's not. The second problem ends up being the fragmentation that occurs across these multiple platforms. Where I see the future of Web3 on-chain communities is a platform and a place to, maybe the guild will be the answer for this, maybe it won't be, but a platform and a place where you can kind of aggregate those communities and where this concept of DAOs without having to complicatedly tokenize every community, maybe even using bonding curves to be able to monetize communities, to be able to interact with communities in a bit more of a depth way. Because I think the community aspect and the human resource aspect is the most important part of liquidity in Web3. In Web3, we view liquidity as buyers and sellers, just like in traditional money markets, but we're actually ignoring the utilitarian aspect. and all the people who are contributing. Once again, we're looking at the top 1-2%, not the 98% of the contributors. And I think for us, what's most important is the human resource liquidity. It is the people. It is the community.
I 100% agree with you there. Hey, everybody. Quick thing here. We're excited to announce WAGMI Advisory, your home for all things fundraising, hiring, and partnerships. This is all about supercharging your project with the WAGMI network, consisting of over 20,000 executives, investors, and builders in crypto, all ready to come alongside your project to help it succeed. Get in touch at team@wagmiventures.io to learn more and figure out if WAGMI Advisory is the right fit for your project. Let's get back to the show. And how you're building the guild, can you walk us through what the offering looks like and sort of some of the concepts that got you to this place? I know you've talked about the human desire to escape, so escapism. I think there's certainly some inspirational pieces or thoughts like anime, isekai, RPG. Would like to kind of get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. Well, why anyone watches a movie, reads a book, basically before I look at business models, I like to look at the philosophical elements of whether this business needs to exist, even before looking at the market data and doing research. What we were able to identify in animes and looking at RPGs is the same reason why anyone reads a book, watches something on Netflix, watches anime, plays a video game is based on concepts of escapism. But what are the core philosophical elements of the people are seeking in these elements? The first would be concepts of camaraderie and loyalty, which are pretty dead in today's society, as sad as that is to say. And then on top of that is one being a part of a greater cause, something bigger than themselves. And then the last part, which kind of sounds like the first one that I just said, is actually wanting to be part of a greater good. The concept of good and bad in the modern world is based upon perception or somewhere in the middle, but there's got to be an ultimate good and an ultimate bad in most protagonist-antagonist situations in these characterizations of whether it's in movies or whether it's in books or anime and video games. And I think ultimately knowing and not having a question mark or doubt about whether you're the good or bad is one of the biggest turn points for people and wanting to be a part of that, at least in intention. And so those answers of escapism, we were trying to figure out, okay, is there a business model we can identify that we can rebuild from these animes and video games into real life and bring those values of escapism and take them out from these otherworld concepts and bring them into reality, and not build them into some future day technology, but build them into laptops and mobile phones, like how people are engaging digitally with the world now. I guess the three business models that we were able to identify was first that in most video games and anime, especially isekais and RPGs, you start in a starter village where almost everyone's around the same experience as you, including the monsters, except for the NPCs. In that starter village, there's usually a town hall, a bar, a brothel, whatever you want to call it, where people gather to socialize and trade off on information, just like we're doing now or at a conference. So knowledge exchange. And then on top of that, somewhere within walking distance, if not in that same building, there is usually a decentralized or centralized autonomous organization, usually called a guild, that pays you for doing jobs, kill 5 monsters, get 5 gold, and then also governs your quote-unquote social credit score in the form of experience points, which govern the type of quests that you can do, the jobs that you can do, the items that you can equip, so on and so forth. And so we tried to translate that into a modern world context, and then we started doing a bunch of market research on whether something like this is valid. And the more we looked, the more we realized that the job arbitrage opportunity is huge, and most people can't participate if they don't have a bank account or if they don't have a way to do KYC. And what most people won't know is that 22.76% of the world's population, approximately 1.9 billion people, don't have a bank account, and 1.1 billion people don't have registered identification.
Yeah, those are powerful numbers. And being able to build community to solve a lot of these issues that are larger than you and I is very admirable. And I think that's kind of been part of your trajectory, your walk in your journey into crypto and how you've built Guild. In many ways, I kind of see it as a platform. Definitely, there is the monetization, the piece of it, but also directly having true and real social impact. But yeah, One of the things that sort of comes up in how you build the guild today is the on-chain reputation piece of it. How are you addressing that part?
So we built, so I guess I'll explain the initial version of what the guild kind of looks like so the viewers can do it without looking at, or the listeners can kind of visualize it without actually looking at the context. I mean, anyone can go take a look at it at beta.theguild.quest, but basically created our own NFT standard, which is a modified version of an ERC6551, a token bound account abstracted wallet in the form of an NFT. The issue with an ERC6551 is that one, it wasn't originally upgradable, so you have to build it on a proxy. Two is that you can put NFTs into them, but you can't pull them back out. So we fixed that. And then three, we attached it to two different smart contracts. The first is this reputation tracker. It's in the form of a non-transferable token called XP, which gets minted directly into the NFT itself. And the second is this multi-tier, multi-level affiliate program that is in the form of, that is tied using specific hashes from one NFT as a referral to another. And these are not soul-bound, so these can be used as new primitives. So the user profile itself is that NFT with these two things tied to it. And the reputation tracker kind of acts as an on-chain credit score. Basically, we track every interaction within the protocol, the amount of time that you have logged in, to the amount of days that you log in a row, to your social engagement, including posts, likes, reposts, all the way to the amount of data that you fill out on the platform to describe yourself, your links to other platforms, all the way to the jobs that you do and the reviews that you gain. All of this is tracked using XP. And then if you're a negative actor, our admins, or later on admins that will be translated into sub-DAOs, will literally slash your XP instead of, for example, banning you from the platform, shadow banning you, or suspending you, because that's kind of like suspending a kid for not going to school. And then what we've done is, instead of NFT gating certain access to features on the platforms, what we've done is we've level gated it, meaning that, for example, in order for you to DM someone on the platform, you have to be level 10 or higher. In order for you to create a guild on the platform, you have to be level 20 or higher, meaning that until you earn a certain bit of social recognition through this type of credit score system that's on chain, you actually don't have access to those features. And if you're a negative actor after getting access, like let's say you spam a bunch of people, the admins have a right to slash your XP if you were to default on a loan, meaning that you would lose access to those features until you gain it back, meaning we don't actually kick users off the platform unless it's something that's almost of a criminal offense.
Yeah, this is really interesting how you're building all these tooling and features to address on-chain reputation for users. I almost feel like it's going to be evolving, and correct me if I'm wrong there.
That is the goal.
And sort of just adjust as you sort of see how folks are behaving, and of course, if it's working as designed. In when I bring all of this together, and I think about Web 2 versus Web 3 here, and like Web 2 of the guild looks like Upwork and Fiverr today, right? And I think the guild could potentially be that Web3 response to both of them, because they both sort of like address that gig economy piece or platform or access, and moving all that on chain sounds like is what Scale is doing. Like, what do you think? Do you think am I on the right track here?
Yes, I think the one part that I would add to that is it's probably like a combination of Upwork / Fiverr and LinkedIn with a lot of gamified aspects. The first part that we did want to address is the job side, but the more we did research into it, whether it's Fiverr and Upwork, is that there's no labor union that protects you on a legal front or a government-based front. There are no associations. These people have no voice on these platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. Fiverr and Upwork charge ludicrous fees, and their payment settlement takes anywhere between 7 to 10 business days. And we were able to bring the fees down by about 70% and bring the transaction speed up to like 15 seconds because it's on the block settlement. But yeah, you're basically on the dot when it comes to that. The biggest difference between us and them is we mentioned that we were a Web3 protocol. My experience of the last almost decade in Web3 has taught me that market maturity is not there yet. Unless you can touch it, break it, use it, fix it, people don't understand it no matter how many pages of documentation you have or how many Medium articles you write. We just decided to build the first application / platform interface. Our end goal is an API and SDK first protocol with a Telegram app and Discord bot where people don't even have to leave their communities to apply for jobs, to use the social sides of the platform. And then on top of that, giving people a way to unionize. And then once our SDKs and APIs are out, that means any of these meme coin projects, any of these projects that are basically not even just meme coins, but any projects that are lacking a bit of utility in a way to keep stickiness of engagement with the users because their utility factor is not there, is now able to pay users in their own tokens and have a different type of token distribution method where you can actually really reward contributors. And then they would have access to all of our tooling, all of our human resource liquidity, all of our job liquidity, all of our users without ever having to jump onto the platform. Like for Fiverr, you have to go to fiverr.com. LinkedIn, you have to go to linkedin.com. For us, you build your own interface. You could even use the guild to hire someone to build your own interface at a fraction of the cost. And then we would get access to their human resource liquidity and their users while they scale by having access to all of our tooling as well.
Yeah, you caught me at like 70% cheaper, and that's the efficiency that blockchain brings, or the Web3 piece sort of brings to a lot of this. So, in how you unleash that social impact aspect of this and that gig economy, which I think is a strong way of like unlocking social economic wealth for a lot of the users that would be engaging with this platform. Can you share any insights from how you've built to sort of meet different audiences, especially folks perhaps adopting or engaging the guild from emerging markets?
Yeah. So when we did our market research, once we had this business concept, it was figuring out like, is there a need for this? And usually when you're doing market research, you think it's a blue ocean and then you realize it's more of a red ocean. And we actually had the exact opposite effect. What we were able to identify that was really cool is, for example, the numbers that I mentioned regarding Nigeria, that's actually across the case in a crap ton of countries. Not only that, for example, although there's a lot of talent, there's minimal exposure. And so in Nigeria, the average wage on a daily basis is $2.10. In the Philippines, as proven by Axie, it's around $6.20. It might have gone up a little bit, but still around the same. And in Thailand, it's around $13.40, all the way up to stacking up across South America, all these other countries, to San Francisco, US. The gap between the bottom of that food chain all the way to the top is around 12,000%, which is insane because you only need, like, most brick and mortar businesses are based on a 50% to 100% difference, and you're still able to middleman and make a margin and build an entire business around that. When we were able to identify that there's a 12,000% gap, we were able to try to address, okay, how do we solve the access problem and the reputation problem, which is where the reputation tracker came in. And then the access problem was, okay, we have to build this system so that it doesn't have to be a fully KYC'd system. And that's kind of the biggest bias of the direction that we went with in the product that we're building.
And that also feels like making sure that you're not gatekeeping in some ways what access looks like, and trying to make it as frictionless as possible, just so that there is adoption and folks are able to derive the value that the platform can provide them.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to get them to drive the platform and derive the value themselves. I don't think we should be the gatekeepers. I think they should.
No, 100% makes sense. So you have actually described Guild as the world's first truly on-chain, multi-tier, multi-level affiliate program. I think that's very interesting, and I think it would be helpful for our audience to just understand what that means and how much work has gone into getting to that place.
So that's actually one of our biggest features. We realized that every product has a cold start problem, and we wanted to try to resolve this. And the best way to resolve that in the Web3 space that we've seen successful has been the Ponzi-nomics, the pyramid schemes, the MLMs / network marketing effects. And it's just the truth. But there are issues to those platforms. And we looked at the three biggest issues. The first part is counterparty risk, meaning that you don't know when someone's going to rug you. So the security factor of that, and making to build an affiliate program that doesn't have that issue. The second problem is the transparency side of, in most of these affiliate programs, you can see who's below you, but you can't see who's above you. And one of the biggest problems in the Web3 space is that you have these like multi-layer affiliate programs, but they're not auditable because they're fully centralized. So these two problems were completely solved by us building this whole thing on chain. And then the last problem is that you're taking Bob's money to give to Alice. It's unsustainable. And so what we did was we solved that by making it derived from the protocol fees that are generated by Bob and Alice. And the people who brought them to the platform would then be getting a piece. And the people who were above them, who brought Bob and Alice's friends that referred Bob and Alice, should also get a smaller piece of that pie, and so on and so forth. And so basically what we did was it took us 11 and a half months before we even started this project to work on this idea, because this idea actually came before the guild actually came, because we realized that we could create an on-chain growth engine that most projects could use. The reason that this is cool is because that means your referral tree is tied to your entire social graph. You can actually see who brought you to the platform, who brought others to the platform, how they're connected, whether they're 1 degree apart, 2 degrees apart. And the question was, can that be built on chain? And the issue that we stumbled into was a computational problem called recursion, which happens when you're trying to like do multiple calculations and repeat the calculations from a top-down structure. It took us a while, but we figured out how to, 1, build this on chain, 2, tie this to an NFT affiliate program, and then 3, allow for the referral program and the affiliate program not to pay out in just our tokens, but in whatever the original transacted asset is. So that means if the job was done being paid on USDT on ETH, then the referrals would be paid out in USDT on ETH. If it was some meme coin on Solana, then the referrals would be paid out in some meme coin on Solana, and so on and so forth across multiple networks. Currently, we're only supporting 6, but we're looking to support 12 to 13 before end of Q1 next year. And what this kind of changes is, 1, you solve the problem of airdropping to a bunch of people who are just cherry pickers, who aren't actually contributors. You're actually passing it out to people who brought these actual contributors to the platform, meaning that they're also contributing in some way, shape, or form. The second part is it changes the current narrative in crypto, which is learn Web3, you might make more money, into you do what you love, you do what you're interested in, you do what you're good at, you earn crypto, and including you and people in your network. Maybe you're just an KOL who referred people. You come back 30 days later, you're now sitting on 30 assets across 5 different blockchains. And now the narrative is learn how to withdraw funds from your wallet. And I think that's a very powerful and different narrative that can change the actual paradigm of the space.
I'm learning a lot here today, man. Thanks for unpacking that and everything that has come together to build that, to make or to pull that definition out. I think it's pretty solid.
Very much.
And just closely tied to that, right? Because I feel like Guild is checking the box in many firsts. As you look down the road, what does the roadmap for Guild look like going forward?
If I give you a more direct roadmap, it would be that I guess the grand vision first is we would like to be the largest provider of human resource liquidity on the internet in 5 years for at least the short-term gig workspace.
Wow.
Because that is a really grand vision, but we think that it may be possible because there has been no innovation in the gig work or freelance space in the last decade. After the invention of Fiverr and Upwork / TaskRabbit, they've actually done more backpedaling due to their investors and they're protecting their bottom line than they have done to actually innovating in the space or providing more value for these people that are actual participants. And now if you're looking at the actual roadmap, we're looking at doing TGE by December of this year. We are in the middle of wrapping up our seed round currently. Aside from that, we'll be launching our guilds feature. So the guilds feature is basically a way to kind of like Discord, except imagine a Discord-like interface with like an announcement board and everything else, and inviting other people, just like in a video game, to join your guild. Except the guild itself is another NFT that you end up minting. As the guild levels up, you're able to offer perks to the individuals that are in the guild, whether it's a discount on protocol fees, extra XP, or a percentage boost in XP earnings or reputation. And then not only that, a way to do taxation, treasury management, almost like managing a sub-DAO without ever having to mention the idea of a DAO. So our goal is to create as much of this tooling as possible and then release our SDKs and APIs by the end of Q1 next year. And once those APIs or SDKs are out, we think we'll be adding kind of rocket fuel to the flame enabling other projects, other ecosystems, other communities, other gaming ecosystems, or a group of Skillshare, whether it's designers or developers or community managers or business developers, to be able to create their own guilds, their own communities, monetize them, and even allow for a way to people to invest into them by putting keys contracts or tickets contracts where that are sharing a percentage of the yield or revenue that guild or community or individual is generating by the people who could buy into it without having to like go through the complex system of having to create your own token and then tokenizing it and coming up with token economics and listing on exchanges and all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what else is going to be coming out of the Guild as a platform. Before I close the show, I always like to ask our guest speakers like what else in crypto excites them. So we'd love to get your thoughts on what else in crypto excites you outside of on-chain community development.
Yeah, I guess I'm on the economic side. I think we're still at quite the early stages, although now no one can ignore crypto as an asset. Bitcoin is now about anywhere between, I mean, depending on what stage of the market it's at and what the price point is at, it's anywhere between 9 to 12% of the entire market cap of gold. It has surpassed the market cap of silver, and that's just looking at Bitcoin. I think we're now entering to the stages of actual Ethereum competitors, whether it's the likes of Movement Labs or Sui or Avalanche, or this narrative of now comparison of monolithic blockchains versus modularized blockchains. And so I'm curious as to the result of that. But more than that, what I'm curious to see is there's a book called The Currency War, which I think came out early in the 80s. I might be incorrect. It might be in the 70s. But basically, it talks about the currency war that most nation states, or the bigger nation states of Russia, China, and the US played. The US ended up winning, and now the Fed exists and the system exists today. But this is the first time in the history of the world where a community-based asset, something that is not run by a centralized government organization, has come to be able to come into contention with or in conflict and be able to participate in this currency war of a currency by the people for the people. Some of the greatest economists in the world, Milton Friedman, Frederick Hayek, all spoke about the fact that government has no role in monetary policy. It doesn't make sense. The government itself is a business that is a for-profit business that needs to make money. And if they're a for-profit business governing how money is created, the rules around money, it's a conflict of interest right there altogether. It doesn't matter like how nice you are. We're human beings. I think as it becomes a community-driven intent, the question becomes like, is it actually possible for a community-driven asset to become the baseline accounting of one in the form as a world-based currency? And I really, although this is a utopian aspect, I really dream of the day that this is actually plausible and possible. And I think we are closer now than we've ever been in the history of human society.
Wow, this is all amazing stuff. Kind of want to just thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, man, like no doubt. It's just been a lot of learning for myself, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners here. Thank you for taking the time, and you will look forward to engaging with you again soon.
Yeah, I'm going to do a shameless shill before I hop off. Please come check us out at beta.theguild.quest. And then also feel free to follow us on Twitter, ping us and DM me for any questions. We love to engage with the community and we love any feedback/reviews. Yeah, dude, thanks for this opportunity. It was awesome. And your questions were very well formulated.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and give us a good 5-star rating and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts so you can get all the latest conversations from the most interesting founders, builders, and investors from across the world. Thanks so much and have a good one.